Need for a new party of the working class in Ireland. Now, comrades, particularly noticeable at the present time is the utter capitulation of the trade union leaders in Ireland, who also accept the parameters for public spending laid down by the government. No leap whatsoever, despite the enormous anger of working people. Just this month last year, 250,000 public sector workers came out for a one-day strike in opposition to the attacks, only to be sold out most cruelly by the leadership of that union, of their union, which says we now accept the parameters of the government and these so-called adjustments have to be made. Still they are under pressure, and on November the 27th they have just called for a mass demonstration before the budget in Ireland. The trade union leadership in Ireland has no alternative, no strategy and no gumption. And therefore that explains a relative quiescence among the working class in Ireland at the present time, despite enormous anger right throughout society at the present time. Incidentally, in the past 2 days, as a kind of an amusing sideshow, there has been a huge controversy when the Minister for Agriculture made a big deal of going in front of the media, making 50 to 60 tonnes of cheddar cheese freely available to the poor through voluntary organisations. In these hard times, he said, this is a good initiative. His initiative was greeted with outrage by the unemployed and their organisations, predictable headlines in the media, let them eat cheese and so forth. In my column in the Irish Daily Mail in Wednesday, I will pose the question, is it cheese because the Irish government thinks the Irish working class are mice? Because of the relative lack of struggle, but I will go on to say that I believe, and this is true, that the mice will shortly begin to roar and begin to be transformed into lions, because I detect an imperceptible, perhaps at this stage, change in the mood, a hardening of the anger, because the promises of the last 2 years that if they tighten their belts we will turn the corner economically are now manifest lies, as we face even more cuts and more savagery by the financial markets. And I think that a harbinger, if you like, was on Wednesday, when 30 to 40,000 students marched in Dublin in opposition to a doubling or trebling of university fees. By far the largest protest of students in the history of the Irish state. Also, a harbinger of things to come was the policing, the style of policing on the day, where there was an absolutely brutal police response to a minor occupation of a front lobby in the Department of Finance, where the riot squad was sent in, where horses were sent in, driven at the students, and the video evidence shows clearly these robo-cops striking out brutally at completely defenceless students. That is not a coincidence, and it is not exaggeration to say that this is a training for when the wider working class moves into open opposition to the disastrous policies of the Irish government and the Irish capitalist class at the present time. And I think we are on the cusp of tumultuous developments, and it is inevitable, whether it's next year or the year after, it is inevitable that there will be a huge clash between the youth and the working class in Ireland and the institutions of the capitalist state. A mirror image of what the comrades have reported from Greece and Spain and Portugal. The comrades have given their witness here today. As a member of the European Parliament for the Irish Socialist Party and the Committee for Workers International, I am privileged to witness some of these struggles. In Strasbourg a few weeks ago, in a small city, more than 20,000 were very noticeable. 2,000 youth, mainly secondary school students, with most of the secondary schools in that city closed for the day. And in Greece as well, I have seen with my own eyes the extent of the anger and the mobilisation. But whether Greece, whether Spain, whether Ireland, the crisis of leadership is a common crisis. The vacuum in the leadership is really gaping at the present time. in terms of no alternative strategy and policy, and no strategy to lead a mass movement to halt the attacks in their tracks. And that is what we, the Socialist Party, and the Committee for Workers International increasingly need to bring to the international working class and youth movement. The declaration that capitalism is broken, the financial system is broken. We face the biggest crisis in humanity in modern history as a result. And at a time when technique and technology is advanced as never before, when the capacity to create wealth and services is as never before, that we have the incredible scenario of capitalism driving society back, perhaps seen most shamefully and dramatically in chaining workers to their desks until they die in the service of the capitalist class, in the attacks on pension rights and pension ages at the present time. So therefore we have a crucial responsibility to outline the socialist alternative, the financial institutions Europe-wide to be taken into public ownership, not in the present manner of bailouts, but under the democratic control and management of working people, and therefore investment and other policies directed to the needs and the good of society, infrastructural projects, public services that can create millions of jobs and improve and build our society to make it a society where human beings can live in dignity and our services can provide what is needed. Dear comrades, in conclusion, how different today is for those comrades who experienced what happened 20 years ago, when the Stalinist world collapsed. We know what the nature of that world was, but we know how the international media, reflecting a huge propaganda surge by the international capitalist class, said this was socialism, socialism has collapsed, there is now no alternative but capitalism and the market. How incredibly things have changed in that short space of time. Above all, the minds, the consciousness of millions, tens and hundreds of millions of working people across Europe and further afield are being opened up to the real nature of their system because they see the implosion of the system in front of their very eyes, and they can identify the culprits in this situation. And what that means as well is the search for an alternative has begun. The search for an alternative to go hand in hand with the determination that they will not destroy what we have won up to now in terms of services and somewhat of a decent life. And therefore I think our ideas are now not so much going with the tide, but going with the flood in reality. And therefore, every comrade can be massively confident that the next years will bring us increasing support to a massive degree. Right across Europe and further afield, I do believe that we will have the capacity of building mighty political parties of the working class, where the Marxists inside will be a critical leavening factor, a decisive leadership force. And it's confidently with that perspective that we should now face the future.